Aloha, namaste. My name is Janapati Das, and welcome again to this episode of Krishna Katha. We are going to get into some exciting stories of Krishna Katha as translated by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So let me offer my respects to you for tuning in. Thank you so much. Please remember, if you haven't already, to like and subscribe to my channel. And let me offer my most humble respects and respectful obeisances to my spiritual teacher, Jagadguru Siddha Swarupananda Paramahamsa Srila Prabhupada, who I pray for his unconditional mercy upon me to be able to teach this class. I have absolutely no intelligence, and everything I'm made up of is by the mercy of my spiritual teachers. So please, let's join in on some kirtan, hearing and chanting of Krishna's most holy names. Thank you very much. I'm going to tune down a little bit, just one step. Sure it's not buzzy. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Siddha Swarupananda Paramamsa Iti Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Siddha Swarupananda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Vasudeva Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Nibo Nita Gaur Nita Gaur Haribo Haribo Nita Gaur Nita Gaur Haribo Hare Krishna 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 Rama Rama Hare Haribol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, thank you again for tuning in. If you haven't already, please feel free to like and subscribe on my channel. Make a commentary, comments, share with your friends. Okay, there is a lot to what we've been reading about. If you like to go back a couple of videos, you can see the story. It goes back up to Krishna's grandson. We're talking, of course, about Lord Krishna's genealogical table, and some of his sons like Pradyumna and Samba, and of course his grandson Aniruddha. And in the last story, we had read about the relationship between Banasura's daughter Usha and Aniruddha. And that's a whole nother story. But we had gotten also into Banasura. Of course, we remember Bali Maharaj. Bali Maharaj, if you recall, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada made reference to Bali Maharaj. And Bali Maharaj was a great king of the demons. Now, just because he was a king of a demon doesn't mean he was demoniac. He was actually a great devotee of Krishna, just like Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj was the son of the great demon Hiranyakashipu, of course, in the story of Lord Nrsingadev and Prahlad. Prahlad was one of the great devotees of Lord Krishna. Bali Maharaj had basically been approached by Lord Vishnu in the form of the incarnation Brahmana dwarf, Vamanadev, who basically just asked for 3 simple steps, to give him 3 simple steps, to claim 3 simple steps of wherever he jumped to. And of course, since he was the supreme personality of Godhead, he was able to jump in the lower, middle, and higher planetary. So he basically was, Bali Maharaj gave him all of everything that he owned in the material world, all the 3 worlds, and which was already owned by Lord Vishnu anyways, but because of that great offering to Lord Vishnu, to Lord Vamana, he was considered a great saint, great devotee of Krishna. And he had a lot of sons, but he also had a son named Banasura, who, of course, unfortunately did not have quite the spiritual depth that Bali Maharaj had, and was a devotee of Lord Shiva, which is not a problem, but the fact that he was a lord, he was very dedicated to Lord Shiva, but unfortunately, like most demons and people who worship Lord Shiva, they want some kind of material benediction of some kind of things. Of course, Lord Shiva had given him 1,000 arms because he had played drums so nicely for Lord Shiva's dance. But Banasura, being very passionate, demons tend to be very full of passion, want to destroy things. He would actually want to fight with, he couldn't try to fight with demigods, and demigods didn't want to fight with him because he was so powerful. And he would just get frustrated and smash mountains with his arms. And he would just tell Lord Shiva, I need somebody to fight with in fact, you're the only one I could fight with. And Lord Shiva was actually bummed with him. And he said, you fool, I give you this benediction. And I tell you that you will meet a match that will, of course, which was Lord Krishna. And so he was excited about that. And then, of course, in the fact that he was the father of Usha and Aniruddha were having relations, okay, and Banasura didn't like that, so he arrested Aniruddha, and then there was this great battle that happened, right, and it ended up so Lord Krishna and the Yadu dynasty and Balaram were on one side, and Lord Shiva and his sons like Ganapati, not Janapati, it was Ganapati, one of the sons of Lord Shiva, and Kartikeya were fighting on the other side, among other ghosts and demons. And so it was a great battle, right? And ultimately what happened was that Krishna hit Lord Shiva with Brahmastra weapon, or big power. They were using these extremely powerful weapons, right? That they're like nuclear weapons and very powerful weapons that could destroy the whole universe. And there was a Shiva Jana, I think that's how it was pronounced, that Lord Shiva had, that was extremely, extremely hot, like the sun, like, because that has to destroy the universe. Lord Shiva has this role of destroying the universe right at the end of the universe's time. And Lord Krishna had the Narayana Vajra, Narayanajvara, which was the opposite, which was extremely cold. Now, the problem is you can't really, something that's cold will eventually overtake something that's hot. And so there was this, this was actually, but there was before that, right? He'd given Lord Shiva a yawning Brahmastra, and so Lord Shiva got real tired, but had thrown this Shiva Jvara weapon at everyone, and it was countered by Lord Krishna's Narayana Jvara. And the personification of these two weapons were actually Shiva Jvara was crying out because it was suffering. He couldn't defeat. He was getting beaten. And even Lord Shiva, his master, could not counteract, because Lord Narayan, Lord Krishna, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, more powerful than Lord Shiva. So what happens, what we come up to in our last video was this point where the Shiva Jvara took shelter of Lord Krishna and began to pray. And this is where we started. My dear Lord, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, because you have unlimited potencies. No one can surpass your potencies, and thus you are the Lord of everyone. Generally, people consider Lord Shiva to be the most powerful personality in the material world, but Lord Shiva is not all-powerful. You are all-powerful. This is factual. You are the original consciousness or knowledge. And so it's important to note that the demigods have different levels of power. Lord Shiva is an expansion of Lord Krishna, Lord Vishnu. He is extremely powerful, and he's what's the word? It's exalted devotee of Krishna. So we offer our respects to Lord Shiva. We offer our respects to Lord Brahma. All the demigods we offer our respects to. But we can't get, as devotees of Krishna. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. God is one, right? That's right. Nitya Nityanash Chaitana Chaitanash. Chaitanash Chaitanam. Right? God is one. And he can expand himself. He expands himself into many, many different forms, but Lord Krishna is one. And so it's not right for us to basically, a lot of times people think that the real meaning, when they think about Vaishnavas, or they think, well, you're worship of many different gods. Well, no, that's not really true. We offer our respect. We understand that the demigods are empowered living beings. Sometimes you have levels of beings, right? You have a president or a UN ambassador, and then you may have a person that's just an average Joe working at Jack in the Box, right? So that person at Jack in the Box is not as exalted as the president of the United States, right? So that's a kind of a crude example, but basically the demigods, we offer our respects because they are devotees of Krishna, and we show respects to, we try to show respect to everyone, even the simple ant, even the simple fish or dog or whatever, whatever living entity in whatever form. But we show respects to the demigods as well. But we never confuse them. We never confuse, like the impersonalists think, oh, well, you can just pick and choose your form because they're just forms, and God is one, and it's this one Brahman energy, and we're all part of it, and we're all the same thing, which is not really true. It's a Chinta Veda Veda Tattva, as Lord Chaitanya would say, simultaneously one, the same spiritual energy, but simultaneously different, right? So every living entity is individual Jivatma. And the living entities in the positions of demigods are the same. But Lord Krishna, Lord Vishnu, is not a position. Lord Krishna, Lord Vishnu, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that we have to differentiate that. You are all powerful. This is factual. You are the original consciousness or knowledge. Without knowledge or consciousness, nothing can be powerful. A material thing might be very powerful, but without the touch of knowledge or consciousness, it cannot act. So that's also a really significant point. We have to understand the difference between consciousness, where the spiritual entity is in the presence of Prakriti, or the material energy. Material energy by itself does not give birth to consciousness. It doesn't have any consciousness. It's actually just dead matter. And this is seen as, if you have a dead body, it's immediately broken down. How is it broken down? By other living entities in bodies of amoebas and bacteria. So it's not the bacteria, it's not the forms of the amoebas, it's not the flies and the ants. They're forms that are actually breaking it down, but it's actually the living entities present within that, working on matter, breaking it down. So matter is in consistent flow, right? And that's because the presence of the living entity, the presence of consciousness in the universe. Without the presence of the Jivatmas, there would be no consciousness in the universe. It would just be energy that was unnecessary. So it serves this purpose. That's a whole another point. A material thing might be very powerful, but without the touch of knowledge or consciousness, it cannot act. A material machine may be very gigantic and wonderful, but without the touch of someone conscious and in knowledge, the material machine is useless for all purposes. So even when we talk about, this idea of, artificial intelligence or computers, they say, well, just like the body is changing parts, we can change parts in the computers, but actually somebody had to program, some conscious being had to program the artificial intelligence to do what it does. And maybe it does certain things, but it's still a computer. It doesn't have any awareness, it doesn't have any consciousness. It's just programmed by someone who's, a living being. So that computer, without the proper, if it's not plugged in, if it doesn't have the proper parts in there, it doesn't actually work. So it's separate from the fact that from the living being in the bodies. My Lord, you are complete knowledge, and there is not a pinch of material contamination in your personality. Lord Shiva may be a powerful demigod because of his specific power to annihilate the whole creation, and similarly, Lord Brahma may be very powerful because he can create the entire universe, but actually neither Brahma nor Lord Shiva is the original cause of this cosmic manifestation. It's also important to note that actually Lord Shiva is not destroying the universe. It's actually Lord Vishnu, Lord Krishna, who actually really is indirectly doing this through his expansions. Lord Brahma does not create. He actually comes into every Lord Brahma position who wakes up in the universe, does not know where he is. He's like the living entity. When they're born, they're just like, what's going on? Doesn't know how to create, didn't know anything, has to meditate in order to receive all the information from Krishna about how to create this particular universe. And so, you are the absolute truth, the supreme Brahman, and you are the original cause. The original cause of the cosmic manifestation is not the impersonal Brahman effulgence. That impersonal Brahman effulgence is resting on your personality, as is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. The cause of the impersonal Brahman is Lord Krishna. So, very brief, because that's a whole nother subject. The three aspects of God, God realization. Of course, the lowest form is Brahman. Brahman is the Brahman effulgence, right? All the living entities, all the material energy, the great white light. Sometimes people who experience that sometimes in animistic religions, or they experience this great white light, and that is the Brahman effulgence. That is the effulgence coming off of Krishna. The second form of Brahman realization is Paramatma, or the expansion of the Lord in the heart, right? The fact that Krishna expands into Kshirodakshai Vishnu, to be basically expand, several times I should say actually, to expand and be with the living entity while he travels through the material world. So like the Holy Spirit or the Lord in the heart, or what people may call the intuition. He's always there. He's always in every living entity, watching, waiting, trying to give insight, helping. So that realization. So many yogis in the past would meditate upon, in their heart, upon the Paramatma, and that was called Paramatma realization. But the highest form of God realization is Bhagavan, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha. So Sat Chit Ananda, eternal bliss and knowledge, right? And living entity is also Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha. Vigraha, of course, is that aspect of spiritual form, not a material form. So we know that God is not material. Our bodies are material, but Krishna does not have a material form like ours. His body is Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha. Our jivatma, ourselves, our living entity within the body, we are Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha. But the body itself is not such an, it's not eternal, it's not blissful, it has very little knowledge, and it's definitely not a spiritual form because it breaks down right away, right? And it can die. But as we said in the Bhagavad Gita, for the soul there is never birth nor death. So the jivatma is of the same quality, spiritual energy as the Supreme Lord. That's just a very brief summary of that when we talk about Brahman effulgence. So the impersonal Brahman effulgence. So it's impersonal because it's the great white light. It's actually not personal. There are many yogis who try to merge, their themselves into this great white light, but they cannot stay there. They merge and they eliminate their personality, and they're one with. And many times they come down and they think, oh, I am Krishna or Shiva or whatever coming down. I am the Supreme Lord coming down, descending, and this is the Mayavadi philosophy, which is incorrect. And there's a whole other. We'll get into this a lot because there are a lot of stories, especially the prayers by the personified Vedas later in this that talk about impersonalism. Therefore, the impersonal Brahman is not the ultimate cause. So this Brahman effulgence is likened to the sunshine which emanates from the sun globe, right? So this energy that comes off of Krishna, the body of Krishna. Therefore, impersonal Brahman is not the ultimate cause. The ultimate cause of everything is the supreme eternal form of Krishna. All material actions and reactions are taking place in the impersonal Brahman, but in the personal Brahman, the eternal form of Krishna, there is no action and reaction. So merging into this Brahman effulgence, there is no action, there's no reaction, there's just oneness, right? But it is not the highest temporary, and it's not the highest form of God realization. My Lord, your body is therefore completely peaceful, completely blissful, and is devoid of material contamination. In the material body, there are actions and reactions of the three modes of material nature. The time factor is the most important element and is above all others because the material manifestation is affected by time agitation. Time keeps on ticking into the future. Steve Miller song. It's like our time is short in this body. This natural phenomena comes into existence, and as soon as there is an appearance of phenomena, fruitive activities are visible. As the result of these fruitive activities, a living entity takes its form. So we're talking about, there's a lot of things to unpack here, right? We talk about the modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. We talk about the fruitive activities, the karmic reaction, good and bad, that we get because we're in a material body. Time factor, we're an eternal being experiencing temporary existence in the material world. So the time is beginning, middle, and end. There is a time factor, whereas there is no time factor outside of the material elements. He acquires a particular type of nature which is packed up in a subtle body and gross body formed by the life air, the ego, the 10 sense organs, the mind, and 5 gross elements. lot to unpack there, but we can refer to the Bhagavad Gita chapter 7, where it says, earth, water, fire, air, mind, intelligence, false ego, these are all consistent of an inferior energy, material energy. But beyond this, there's the spiritual energies, Krishna says in the later verse, which are the living entities, the jivatma, who are struggling with the this material energy and trying to find happiness within the material world, right? These then create the type of body which will later become the root or cause of various other bodies. So that's a whole nother thing too. Of course, how you interact with your mind, the false ego, the senses, determines what kind of karma you're going to get, and what you do with your mind will shape the form of the subtle body, and which is the mind, and how you use your material sense organs will also shape that, and that'll determine when the living entity wants to leave at the end of this body, it won't be able to go because it's in this form that has to take place because of its activities that the jivatma has done within this particular subtle body, right? And so that'll take on whatever form it's going to take on. So the practice of sadhana bhakti and bhakti yoga helps burn away the karmic reactions, helps eliminate this subtle body, so that in the end, the jivatma can experience its true nature and its true purpose of being loving servant of Krishna, and at the end of this life can actually go back to Krishna, not being hindered by a subtle body. These then create the type of body which will later become the root or cause of various other bodies which are acquired one after another by the transmigration of the soul. All these phenomenal manifestations are the combined actions of your material energy. Unaffected by the action and reaction of different elements, you are the cause of this external energy, and because you are transcendental to such compulsions of material energy, you are the supreme tranquility. You are the last word in freedom from material contamination. I am therefore taking shelter at your lotus feet, giving up all other shelter, including taking shelter of Lord Shiva, his master. My dear Lord, your appearance as a son of Vasudeva in your role as a human being is one of the pastimes of your complete freedom. To benefit your devotees and to vanquish the non-devotees, you appear in multi-incarnations. All such incarnations descend in fulfillment of your promise in the Bhagavad Gita that you appear as soon as there are discrepancies in the system of progressive life. When there are disturbances by your regular principles, my dear Lord, you appear by your internal potency. Your main business is to protect and maintain the demigods and spiritually inclined persons and maintain the standard of material law and order. Simultaneous to the maintenance of such law and order, your violence to the miscreants and demons is quite befitting. This is not the first time you have incarnated. It is to be understood that you have done so many, many times before. My dear Lord, I beg to submit that I have been very greatly chastised by the release of your Narayana Jvara. It is certainly very cooling, yet at the same time very severely dangerous and unbearable for all of us. My dear Lord, as long as one is forgetful of Krishna consciousness, driven by the spell of material desires, and ignorant of the ultimate shelter of your lotus feet, one who has accepted this material body becomes disturbed by the three miserable conditions of material nature. Once again, the three miserable conditions of material nature are: the living entity is disturbed by other living entities. And that includes not just humans, but other bugs, amoebas, and bacteria that get in your stomach, dogs that bark at you, so many different kinds of living entities, right? So if they're not disturbed by that, they're then disturbed by natural causes, or the causes by the demigods, natural causes, tornadoes, floods, hurricanes, fires, so many things, tsunamis, earthquakes, so many, typhoons, and just different kinds of things, heat, excessive heat, too hot, too cold, very cold, heavy rains, flooding, so many things. You can just look at it. We're disturbed by those. And if we can get past that, we're still disturbed by our own mind. Always disturbed by our own mind and our own thoughts. So those three things, the three, um, what was it here? Three miserable conditions of material nature, right? Okay, so those are really important to remember. Because one does not surrender unto you, he therefore continues to suffer perpetually. After hearing, and really, if you look at the news, this is what people are disturbed by all the time. And there's nothing more telling than the state of mental condition going on in our country, in the West. You know, we just had this situation, the school shootings, people shooting each other, people just thriving off of conflict and anger and hatred and racism and war, and we're at the brink of war with Russia, and just all these things that go on. All we can do is take shelter of the Supreme Lord to find peace, to find real, true shelter. After hearing the Shivajvara, Lord Krishna replied, O three-headed one, I am pleased with your statement. Be assured there is no more suffering for you from the Narayana-shvara. Not only are you now free from the fear of the Narayana-shvara, but anyone in the future who simply recollects this fight between Shivajvara and Narayana-shvara will also be freed from all kinds of fearfulness. Yay! All you have to do is hear the story. That's great. After hearing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Shivajvara offered his respectful obeisances unto his lotus feet and left. In the meantime, Banasura somehow or other recovered from his setbacks and with rejuvenated energy returned to fight. This time, Banasura appeared before Lord Krishna, who was seated on his chariot with different kinds of weapons in his 1,000 hands. Banasura was very much agitated. He began to splash his different weapons like torrents of rain upon the body of Lord Krishna. When Lord Krishna saw the weapons of Banasura coming at him like water out of a strainer, he took his sharp-edged Shudanshan disc and began to cut off the demon's 1,000 hands, one after another, just as a gardener trims the twigs of a tree with sharp cutters. When Lord Shiva saw that his devotee Banasura could not be saved even in his presence, he came to his senses and personally came before Lord Krishna and began to pacify him by offering the following prayers. So now Lord Shiva's, got it right. Lord Shiva said, My dear Lord, you are the worshipful object of the Vedic hymns. One who does not know you considers the impersonal Brahmajyoti to be the ultimate, supreme, absolute truth, without any knowledge that you are existing behind your spiritual effulgence in your eternal abode. My dear Lord, you are therefore called Param Brahman. This word Param Brahman has been used in the Bhagavad Gita to identify you. Saintly persons, right? Param is a great, like sometimes we say, Paramatma, right? The Atma is the spirit soul, but the Parama is the spirit, the Krishna, right? The Lord in the heart, the super soul, right? So Krishna is the Param Brahman, or the source of the Brahman. Saintly persons who have completely cleansed their heart of all material contamination can realize your transcendental form. Although you are all pervading like the sky, unaffected by any material thing, only the devotees can realize you and no one else. In the impersonalist conception of your supreme existence, the sky is just like your navel, the fire is your mouth, and the water is your semina. The heavenly planets are your head, and all the directions are your ears. The earthy planet is your lotus feet, the moon is your mind, and the sun is your eye. As far as I am concerned, I act as your ego. The ocean is your abdomen, and the king of heaven, Indra, is your arm. Trees and plants are the hairs of your body. The cloud is the hair on your head, and Lord Brahma is your intelligence. All the great progenitors known as Prajapatis are the symbolic representatives. And religion is your heart. The impersonal feature of your supreme body is conceived of in this way, but you are ultimately the supreme person. The impersonal feature of your supreme body is only a small expansion of your energy. You are likened to the original fire, and the expansions are your light and heat. Oops, bumped there. Yeah, very beautiful. Lord Shiva continued, "My dear Lord, although you are manifested universally, different parts of the universe are your different parts of your body, and by your inconceivable potency, you can simultaneously be both localized and universal. In the Brahma Samhita, we also find it stated that although you always remain in your abode, Goloka Vrindavan, you are nevertheless present everywhere. God is all. God is everything. God is present everywhere. Just like the CEO's energy is experienced throughout a company. It's kind of a crude example, but Krishna is situated within Goloka Vrindavan, but he is expanded everywhere. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, you appear to protect the devotees, which indicates good fortune for all the universe. All of the demigods are directing different affairs of the universe by your grace only. Thus, the 7 upper planetary systems are being maintained by your grace. I had explained this to them. It's like somebody, I've seen this meme go around. There are 6,000 gods that people worship in the, but only your God is the correct God, right? And I had explained that, the idea of monotheism, and that the Vaishnavas are actually monotheists, and that what we consider, just like in Christianity, as like angels, or in the Vedic system as Gandharvas, we have empowered living beings, sometimes in heavenly planets, in hellish planets. They're administrators. They're empowered living beings, just like you and me, but with, a lot more power. So Lord Brahma is a living being in the position of Lord Brahma. He has extreme power to be able to create and maintain, create the universe, basically, to be the administrator of the universe. But he's not the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And there's actually a very famous story about Narada Muni seeing that Lord Brahma, because Narada Muni's spiritual master was Lord Brahma. And he saw that Lord Brahma was offering prayers to somebody above him. And he said, "Excuse me, my dear Lord, I saw that you've been praying. Is there somebody beyond you?" And then, of course, Lord Brahma was able to give the Vedic knowledge to Narayana about the truth of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he was very happy to hand that information down. Thus, the 7 upper planetary systems are being maintained by your grace. At the end of this creation, all manifestations of your energies, whether in the shape of demigods, human beings, or lower animals, enter into you, and all immediate and remote causes of cosmic manifestation rest in you without distinctive features of existence. Ultimately, there is no possibility of distinction between yourself and any other thing on an equal level with you or subordinate to you. You are simultaneously the cause of this cosmic manifestation and its ingredients as well. You are the supreme whole, one without a second. In this phenomenal manifestation, there are 3 stages: the stage of consciousness, the stage of semi-consciousness and dreaming, and the stage of unconsciousness. But your lordship is transcendental to all these different material stages of existence. You exist, therefore, in a 4th dimension, and you appear and disappear and do not depend on anything beyond yourself. You are the supreme cause of everything, but for yourself there is no cause. You yourself cause your own appearance and disappearance. Despite your transcendental position, my Lord, in order to show your 6 opulences and advertise your transcendental qualities, you have appeared in your different incarnations: fish, tortoise, boar, Nrsinga, Keshava, etc., by your personal manifestation, and you have appeared as different living entities by your separated manifestations. By your internal potency, you appear as the different incarnations of Vishnu, and by your external potency, you appear as the phenomenal world. Because it is a cloudy day to the common man's eyes, the sun appears to be covered, but the fact is that because the sunshine creates a cloud, even though the whole sky is cloudy, the sun can never actually be covered. So we can, right now in Hawaii, right in windward side right now, it's very cloudy, but it doesn't mean that the sun is gone. It's just beyond the clouds. It still exists in its own glory.